Okay, what is testing? Okay, now we talked about MMM. Second is incrementality. What is incrementality testing? Incrementality testing is the time-tested approach for measurement. Okay, like vaccines, for example. we all took the COVID vaccine. I think in January you talked about the RCT, randomized controlled testing. Randomized controlled testing is the most it's the golden standard for testing, right? So you basically take an audience and you split the audience into two groups, test and control. They should be identical in terms of who they are. And then you give one the test audience, the actual campaign, the control audience, the placebo, right? That's kind of what RCT testing is all about. Now we're applying that principle to media. The idea is the same, but how you apply it to media is where all the sophistication, the complexity, the design principles all come in, right? But the fundamental idea is there, the same. So imagine this is your campaign, right? This is your campaign, or represents the reach in the campaign. And then you get last touch conversions from, let's say this is Facebook. Like Facebook, you're touching a bunch of people through Facebook ads, and Facebook's reporting a bunch of conversions, last touch conversions. Now, if you didn't do anything, you will think that C over R is a conversion rate. You will take the total number of conversions Facebook's reporting divided by total reach of the campaign. That's your conversion rate. But having gone through the last an hour with me, you know that, well, that's not really true. It's correlational. What is really causal in this? How many of those conversions that Facebook is reporting is truly causal? How do you measure that? You take a control population, which represents the same Facebook campaign audience. You give them a control treatment. Okay, we'll talk about what those control treatments are. You measure the conversion rate of the control treatment, and you find that the control treatment also has a conversion rate. Okay, it's not zero. Typically, it's not zero. Also has a conversion rate. Therefore, now you kind of reconcile these two and say, well, if I gave this control conversion rate to the test audience, it will still give me so many baseline conversions, right? Now, you deduct the baseline conversions from whatever Facebook's reporting, that's incremental conversion. So you're basically trying to decompose what of this last touch is really baseline and incremental, right? So this is basically the idea, that you're trying to take the RCT principle, randomized controlled testing principles, and then apply it to media. And that's where all the sophistication, complexity, and the complexity is, right? So to do that, and fundamentally decompose the last touch conversions into a baseline piece and an incremental piece, okay? Incrementality testing is founded on design of experiments principles, which is classic statistical testing principle, been around for 100 years. Used for everything from biology to vaccine testing to everything, right? So we are applying it to media. Now, the important thing, note, not everything that the industry claims is testing is DOV testing, okay? There's something called quasi-experimental techniques. You will find a lot of words called synthetic control, right? Now, what we're doing here is we're designing the control. We're saying this is your test, this is your control. Now, in real world, it's not always possible to test like this. So what they might do is they might actually synthesize a control audience that represents your campaign audience and observe them for what they are converting, okay? That's where you'll see a lot of snake oil, right? Like a lot of platforms will put out lift testing that comes out of the box. And how they synthesize this control is where either your campaign looks really good or looks like, piece of crap, right? So kind of watch out for that. We'll talk more about how to look out for the signs here. But when you kind of get a Hulu report or a Facebook report or whatever, you're trying to understand, okay, is this like a quasi-experimental technique where they're synthesizing control audiences, or are they actually designing a control, right? And there are examples of both in industry, okay? And others, the last one is observational designs. You will find that there's a lot of, instead of synthesizing the control, what you might do is you might observe what happened in market as a test, right? Like, for example, a good example is a geo test. Like, you'd say you want to do a geo test and you didn't run a test. But what you might do is, after the fact, look at the exposure across multiple geos and say, well, these geos did not get any exposure, so they're kind of control, right? And these geos all got exposure, so they're kind of test. So I'm going to just roll up the control geos, roll up the test geos that were observed, not really tested, and then treat them as like a test, right? So there are approaches like that in market as well. So just be aware that different approaches will get into the specifics as we go into it, okay?